Teachers of Reddit, what's the worst thing you have heard a colleague say about a student? When I was in 6th grade, there was this kid. I'll call him Danny. Danny was an idiot of the highest caliber. The kid just sat there with a blank look on his face all day, every day. We are going over the human body and digestion one day and teacher decides to throw Danny an easy question out to boost him up a bit. She asks him how we get liquid into our bodies. Danny sits there with a blank look and says I don't know. She prompts him again by asking how he gets liquid into his body when he's thirsty. Danny replies, I don't know. She is amazingly frustrated by this point and goes as far to ask Danny, how do you get water into your body when you're thirsty? And he replies, I don't know. Through your skin, maybe? She freaks out and loses her shit. He's sitting there looking dazed as always and misses. Teacher charges to the back of the room and grabs his arm. She pulls him out of his seat and drags him to the front of the classroom where there was a sink. The water gets turned on and she shoves his arm into the stream and keeps yelling at him through the skin. Through the skin? How are you feeling now? Are you getting full? Are you getting enough water? You drink water with your mouth. I'm nearly 40 now, and I will remember that scene for the rest of my life with mixed amounts of horror and amusement. I used to have 2 math teachers, older men, and they would send various girls to and from each other's classes with important messages to give to the other teacher. Years later I talked to one of the girls and turns out they were sending hot girls dressed in something like a short skirt or a revealing outfit for the other to check out, and the notes always had something gross and raunchy on it. I had a substitute teacher sub for me one day, and in her substitute teacher report for my 8th grade class, she wrote, Jenny, name changed, was lifting up her shirt to show the boys her navel ring. I predict she will be pregnant by next year. I went to the high school my mom taught at. Teachers were at my house all the time. They never held back anything, and so it is nearly impossible to distill it to a single thing that one of them said. But here are a few that stand out. I fucking hate future valedictorian, but I'm not going to be the one who gives him an A or his cunt mom will throw a fit. It's not worth the hassle. That fucking kid has no sense of reality. Once his daddy's money stops flowing, he's going to be in prison. I can't wait to visit him there. Regarding 2 attractive twin brothers a year behind me, which one is hotter? I'd fuck them both at the same time. I would kill that little bitch if I could get away with it. A student in 5th grade saw a psychologist to test him for learning difficulties. This was an average student of accepting, educated parents in a private school. The psychologist told the kid's parents that he would never go to college. WTF. How can you limit a 10-year-old's future like that? The parents were upset, but luckily ignored her. His current high school is a much better fit for him, and while he's not top of the class, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to pursue higher education, if that's what he wants. I have a colleague who swears like a sailor. It's her first year in the profession, and she's had about 6 incidents where she's sworn in front of students, usually by letting a fuck or fucking slip out in class. That pales in comparison to the way she speaks about them out of school. Referred to a 15-year-old boy with fetal alcohol syndrome as looking like an abortion. Apostrophe. Referred to a girl as being a clitoris. Referred to a student's somewhat overweight mother as a potato dumpling. Pointed out an Aboriginal student by saying the negroid next to the white kid. Even by racist logic this doesn't make sense. Called our principal an unapproachable autistic fuckbag. Apostrophe. I heard that some teacher at my school once literally told a student that he was a nasty filthy little piece of shit and that he should go back to the toilet, which he was torn out of. That teacher was really angry and the kid he insulted really was an ass. He got an official warning, but got away unscratched. The kid was one that could handle things like it, so he took it lightly. It sure left an impression though. I heard a lot of creepy comments about female students. Some were subtle and some less subtle, but the worst one was actually from a female teacher talking about a male student. Paraphrasing, when he wears those tight jeans, I just want to give him a spank, you know? She used to buy him stuff all the time and pay him a lot of attention. People thought it was strange, but it was okay because she was also his aunt. My senior year of high school I took a freshman class that was required to graduate. My teacher turned to me once when all of the freshmen were being loud and said, "This is why they don't let teachers have guns." This same teacher was arrested the next semester for taping a camera under the sink of one of the handicap bathrooms. Another teacher was arrested that same semester for having taken pictures with hidden cameras under desks and an iPad which he would slide out from under his desk when students would go up to talk to him. They were stored on his school computer and discovered by a student. His reasoning for doing this was something along the lines of it started as an accident and then became a challenge to see how long I could do it. Get a teacher drunk enough and you hear some shit. Both my parents were friends with a lot of teachers I had in my schools growing up. I would hear teachers talk about what kids to buy weed from, what kids would be failures, what kids would be dead in the next few years, and on one occasion I heard a teacher refer to a student as a stupid whore who will ruin her life before high school. She did get pregnant in 8th grade, but still that's a fucked up thing to say. Our chemistry teacher was taking a class on balancing chemical reactions. There is this couple talking, giggling, and disturbing the class. Our teacher looks at them and says, "You guys have a nice chemistry going. Just don't turn these reactants into products." From a colleague of my mum's. They're going to keep passing her and switch her classes and making excuses because her dad is some shitty lawyer friend of the super. I can't fucking wait until she gets accepted to a great uni with her fake transcript. She'll get there, barely knowing how to spell, and finally understand that daddy can't fix her bullshit forever. She'll hit a brick wall and probably resort to making fake rape allegations to try to get her way. I would be shocked, but I work at the same school. Even though I'm just a janitor, well, janitors are invisible. We hear everything. Most of the people in here posting aren't teachers. I do teach, and let me tell you, my colleagues make fun of college students all the time. I have heard plenty of terrible things. Let me list some of my favorites. I honestly don't know how this person got into college, because he can't read or write past a 4th grade level. There is a student who kept hitting on me, so I lost his final paper and said he never turned one in. Part of me wants to say F off to students coming into my office when they have stupid questions. I failed a student because one of his sentences in his research paper was too close to the opening paragraph of the reference paper he was citing. What kind of an idiot does that? I'm failing the majority of my students. He was laughing as he said it. My teacher told us that a couple years before we had her, she had purposely called a student a word that she did not know was inappropriate. She only told us that it was a 7-letter word that started with S. Naturally, I dropped everything, stopped paying attention, and started racking my brain for every naught word I knew until 5 minutes after the conversation had ended I screamed scrotum in the middle of algebra. Teacher did not confirm nor deny, which means she confirmed. A bit late to the party, but I had to chime in on this one. High school, junior year. Most of us were around 16. Some had been peeking into 17. In my APUSH class, our teacher had been making some really sexist remarks. I had only been half listening, so I can't really tell you them verbatim, but it essentially led to one of my girl classmates telling him, "If you were my age, I'd slap you so hard right now." Almost immediately, as if he had been waiting to say it for a long time, he nonchalantly replied back, "If I was your age, I'd be on top of you in the back of my truck right now." The worst part is that he still works there. The school can't bring itself to fire him, and he's gotten away with so much shit like this. Okay, so both of my parents are teachers, my dad an elementary school teacher and my mom a high school teacher. From both ends the things teachers will say about students astound me. I've heard teachers racially profiling kids under the age of 12 because the writing on the bathroom wall was too ghetto to be written by a white child. I've overheard high school teachers calling students sluts and talking about how they shouldn't have to teach students that were just going to end up in fast food service. My grandpa died literally the day before my final university exam, so I applied for special consideration immediately. One of my university's staff members, who apparently had some sort of chip on her shoulder, was deliberately delaying my application by continually misplacing my paperwork. After 2 months of jumping through this woman's hoops, all other applications were approved or declined within 1 to 2 weeks. I emailed directly to her boss to complain about her. Not long after that, I received an email from the woman who called me, and I quote, "A cue jumping, daddy loving trollop." Half an hour later I received 2 more emails, one from her and one from her boss, apologizing profusely. The boss then informed me that my special consideration was approved and that the woman had been fired. Student here. My math teacher constantly makes jokes about kids in my class in regards to their race. If you're Asian, you will be told to stop studying Chinese characters if you are not paying attention. If you're Latino, he will ask questions about which community college you're going to. If you look European, like I do, he assumes you're an immigrant. I've been told multiple times to make sure to write your test in English, and when calling him out on that, be told something along the lines of, "In Poland your behavior would not be acceptable at all," all while keeping a stupid grin on his face. I wonder how he still has his job. My junior year, a teacher had a miscarriage. When she came back, she was a bit mad at the class for a bunch of assholes acting like douchebags and yelled quite a bit. A student got up and said something to the effect of, "Guess it's a good thing you had a miscarriage." She broke down and cried. One of the other teachers came and got her. For about 15 to 20 minutes there was total silence. Then the vice principal came in with a totally red face. Kid tried to say she deserved it and fought back. When he made to grab him, V principal punched him in the face hard. Kid stopped fighting. Total silence for the rest of the hour. Vice principal never got in trouble. Parents actually approved of their kid being suspended. I taught in Japan for a bit. I was kind of lucky because I got to start in the middle of the year as a result of my mid-year application for the job. Usually school starts in April, but I applied in July, started in August. The reason I got to start in the middle of the year was the guy teaching at that school before me was fired for sexually harassing a student. This was at a middle school. That guy was in his late 20s and he was hitting on a 15-year girl. She was wearing a kimono at a festival and he asked her if she was wearing anything underneath it. He had a slight history of creepiness towards the girls, so this was the last straw. So now I'm working there and getting along great with the staff because I'm not a pedo. One day I'm getting a ride somewhere with the vice principal and we passed some high school kids on their bikes. He leaned over in the car and nudged my arm and gestured to some of the high school girls. He said, "Hey, HMM. High school girls." It was uncomfortable for the rest of the ride. I think he was just testing me to make sure I wasn't like the previous guy, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm an 8th grade math teacher in an urban district. Some of these kids are lazy and as dumb as a bag of bricks. I might show my frustration at times, but I don't say degrading things. That said, the number one thing they say that is fucked up is something along the lines of, "You kids will never go to college," or, "and that's why you'll never amount to anything." One of my students even wrote an apology letter to my co-teacher, special ed class, because he lost his shit on her for basically nagging him in the middle of class. I left the classroom with him so that I could talk about what just happened. Apparently, as mentioned in his letter, he said in front of the other kids, "That's what happens when you're not raised properly."